Good morning, everyone. Your morning weather briefing for this Friday, June 1st, finds that there are no significant changes in my forecast versus what I presented yesterday. Temperature and rainfall outlooks still fairly extensive, above normal temperatures across a big portion of the nation in the near term before abnormal heat is centered more towards central and western portions of the nation. Beyond that, 6 to 10 and 11 to 15 day time frames, a rainfall pattern that should be dominated by ring of fire activity in the Corn Belt. A lot of details still to be worked out for both periods. QPF discussion this morning. I think that this forecast is still a little bit too wet, but I do not have the big disagreements that I had yesterday morning. Note how the forecast for Iowa much drier than it was yesterday morning, and that was certainly a point of contention on my part with the QPF map from yesterday morning. I think that this map in particular is too wet in Illinois, where I think that portion of Illinois for the next 5 days could see no rain at all. For the day 6 to 7 time frame, this is when our ring of fire activity is likely to be firing up. I like where the map is showing the best rainfall chances to occur in the Corn Belt and in the northern plains. Overall, though, coverage should be a lot less than shown, while at the same time, rainfall amounts probably locally a lot bigger than this map would show. Afternoon high temperatures yesterday shows that some 90 plus degree reading started to work its way back into western sections of the Corn Belt. The 90 plus degree heat would have been more extensive had we not seen rainfall over the last 24 hours in some portions of the especially southeastern Corn Belt. Some nice and very welcome rains there occurring in southern Indiana and also into southern sections of Illinois, as you can see from both the actual amounts and from the radar estimated rainfall map. Also a pocket of some nice and welcome rains in northern Indiana, and you can also see our next weather system starting to fire up some nice rains in southwestern sections of North Dakota. Rainfall so far during this work week period, some very nice rainfall amounts across a big portion of the hard red winter wheat belt. Any rains that have been received in the eastern Corn Belt clearly beneficial in nature there. Pockets of limited rainfall during this work week period, mainly in southeastern Iowa and northeastern Missouri, as well as a big portion of South Dakota. Looking at the radar here early on this Friday morning shows that significant rains are scattered across a good portion of the northern mid-south, while extensive rains falling across sections of the northern plains. As far as the near-term forecast is concerned, look for most of the Corn Belt to be dry on this Friday before rainfall gets fired up in western portions of the Corn Belt and into the northern plains for this evening through the overnight hours. Looking at the radar forecast as of 9 o'clock this evening shows an extensive area of shower and thunderstorm activity in the northern plains and working its way into the western Corn Belt. Should be quite a bit of severe weather outlook, severe weather with that activity, a big area of slight and enhanced risk of severe weather during the next 24 hours. Would think that anyone within that slight and enhanced area has a chance for a locally heavy rainfall amount for the next 24-hour time frame. The system in question, though, is going to be weakening as it works eastward during the weekend into the eastern Corn Belt. Surface features as of 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday shows that just some light rain is going to be occurring at that time in the eastern portions of the Corn Belt. My rainfall forecast with this near-term system is unchanged from yesterday. Looking for some 4/10 to 1-inch rainfall amounts with 60% coverage in the western Corn Belt. Localized heavier totals in strong and severe thunderstorms. Southeastern Nebraska being the most likely area to see the heavier rains. For the eastern Corn Belt, rainfall amounts of 2/10 to 6/10 of an inch expected with the near-term system, with rainfall coverage there of 40%. Longer term, for the 6 to 10 day time frame and possibly into the early 11 to 15 day period, it would be ring of fire activity that I think will bring the Corn Belt the main rainfall activity that is seen. Surface features as of 1 o'clock in the morning on June 7th. Not a whole lot at that time from the European operational model, but note that the GFS operational model showing extensive range right in the heart of the Corn Belt. Canadian model also showing rainfall. Even the European ensemble showing a broad area of rainfall chances in the heart of the Corn Belt at that time. Surface features as of 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday. A significant rain event at that time in the western Corn Belt on the European model. Couple of rain events from the GFS model. Canadian model showing one rain event exiting the eastern Corn Belt. Broad area of rainfall chances on the European ensemble. Looking at surface features as of 7 o'clock in the evening on Saturday, June 9th, you can see that both the European and to some extent the GFS model showing some cool air located in southeastern sections of Canada. Extreme heat at that time in the southern plain states. Thus, there would be a battle zone in between, and you can see that both models are showing some range breaking out between those two air masses. Neither model is showing anything real brilliant in the way of widespread or big rainfall at that time, but rest assured that if the surface features were to verify exactly as shown, that the rainfall would actually be a lot more significant than is indicated by the maps at this time. So we are going to be looking at a ring of fire situation in the 6 to 10 day period and possibly a little bit longer than that. Details, though, clearly have to be worked out because ring of fire activity is something that all weather models handle extremely poorly with regards to details much more than a few days in advance. I think that the better rains in the 6 to 10 day period, as shown from my forecast earlier in this presentation, will favor the northeastern Corn Belt versus the southwest. I didn't go for any above normal rainfall in the 6 to 10 day period, but there most likely will be some, as ring of fire activity is the type of activity that can and will produce very, very good rains on a localized basis. It is just the details that clearly have to be worked out. With regards to temperatures, should be a hot Friday across the western, southern, and southwestern Corn Belt and areas to the south of there. For the Corn Belt, extensive area of 90 plus degree highs, some areas 95 plus. In the hardwood winter wheat belt, a lot of 100 plus degree highs today in southwestern Kansas and areas to the south of there. For the 6 to 10 day time frame, setting up to be a situation where the cool weather is in the eastern Corn Belt eastward, with the above normal temperatures and the extreme heat in the central and especially western Corn Belt and into the plain states. By the time we get to Wednesday, here's an example of this with 90 plus degree highs in the central and especially western Corn Belt, lots of 100 plus degree heat at that time in the southern plains. For the southern plains, we'll look at a lot of 100 to 105 plus degree heat on a daily basis for the entire 6 to 10 day period. Note though that east of there on June 6th, high temperatures just in the 70s across the eastern Corn Belt, and it would potentially be the battle zone between those two air masses that would start to give the Corn Belt some rainfall chances at that time. In the longer term, I want to mention something for latter portions of the 11 to 15 day period. Again, for early next week through the early portion of the 11 to 15 day time frame, it will be an upper air pattern featuring a trough of low pressure in the eastern United States and a ridge of high pressure in central and especially western portions of the nation, keeping the eastern United States fairly close to normal on temperatures, areas further west above or even much above normal for some spots. As we get towards the latter portion of the 11 to 15 day period, we may see the pattern adjust just a bit. Note that the European ensemble has a trough of low pressure at that time in western portions of the nation, with the ridge located further east, and to some extent the GFS ensemble and the Canadian ensembles are going along with that forecast. I don't see this as anything real extreme. If you're looking at extreme heat in the Corn Belt, you'd like to see the 588 line as far as 500 millibar heights are concerned, getting into the heart of the Corn Belt region. But you can see that the 588 line, as of late in the 11 to 15 day period, still well into far southern portions of the nation. So it would be above normal temperatures, but not a case where I would be looking at extreme heat in the Corn Belt. I don't think that it's a situation where rainfall chances would shut off either. You can see that the jet stream pattern, mainly across the Corn Belt and especially northern portions of the Corn Belt, would think that disturbances would be moving throughout that jet stream across the ridge and give the Corn Belt continued rainfall chances in the 11 to 15 day time frame. So don't see it as a pattern that is extreme, but want to mention that it would be a different pattern towards the latter portion of the 11 to 15 day period versus what we are going to be seeing for a lot of next week. Internationally this morning in Brazil, still looking at the dry season fully taking control in northern Safrinha corn areas of Brazil, while the 2-week forecast is wet further south, some of that rainfall getting started for tonight. Over in Europe, still looking at above normal rainfall in southwestern Europe, and you can see that as far as 10 day rainfall totals are concerned, some very nice rains in France. For the former Soviet Union, their 2-week forecast as a whole still looking at below normal rainfall, but note that I have added some rainfall to the forecast for especially latter portion of the 6 to 10 day period. You can see that the European operational model this morning is breaking out some nice rains for southern and eastern sections of Ukraine and areas to the northeast of there. Moderate confidence in that forecast, though, given that most of that rainfall would be late in the 10 day forecast period. Temperatures this morning for lows in the winter grain areas and spring grain areas of the former Soviet Union. Note that lows this morning easily into the 30s all across the Volga region. Note that we did see some pockets in the Volga region with low temperatures at or a little bit below the freezing mark. The temperature pattern in the near term will stay very cold in the spring grain areas. Note the well below normal temperatures for tomorrow there. Probably some spots again getting below the freezing mark mark for lows in the near term. Still looking at then a brief but very significant warming trend for around June 6th. Note that high temperatures at that time will be well above normal, but that warming trend will be very brief by the time we get to June 9th, and likely into the 11 to 15 day period, temperatures again returning to easily below normal levels. In China, have added some rainfall to the forecast for corn and soybean areas of Manchuria. Looks like some nice rains there starting around Tuesday through the end of the 6 to 10 day period. All of that rainfall would be very welcome, with some places probably seeing more than an inch. North China Plain looks dry over the next 10 days. Not a problem, as they have been wet in recent weeks, and I would think that that dry weather would be very conducive for winter wheat harvesting operations. Canadian prairies, some nice rains, although note that the bulk of the rains that is shown in the 10-day forecast map is going to be during the next 24 hours before they dry out. Nice cool weather there during the next week as well, but they will be warming up in the second week of the 2-week time frame. Finally, for this morning, strictly below normal rainfall for the Australian wheat areas located in eastern Australia for the next 2 weeks. Just some very light rains of under a half inch there during the next 10 days. A little bit better situation for wheat areas of Western Australia with closer to normal rainfall during the next 10 days and during the next 2 weeks, I should say. And you can see that some of that rainfall will be occurring during the next 10 days, most of that occurring in the 6 to 10 day period. That's what I have for this morning. Everyone have themselves a great day and an even greater weekend.